get into what happened last night. Last night was the Battle River Crowfoot Candidates Forum. Definitely not an all candidates forum because there are 210 candidates in that riding, which irritates me greatly. I'm not sure what Elections Canada does around here anymore. But they did have 10 candidates on the stage. Grant Abraham of the United Party of Canada unleashed on the current state of Canada during the by-election debate. Let's show that video and then we will get some comments from the gentleman.
I'm here because I've spent a lifetime watching elections be decided in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and I've watched the West have the raw end of our structure in our Constitution. And I think that what we're really looking at here in Alberta right now is a discussion between what Canada we want to have. If it's the one that has had the West paying for the pandering to Ontario and Quebec, or whether it's one that wants to see an Alberta strong, free, and independent that can actually stand up and make a difference in this world and actually redefine Canada. And so my discussion tonight, my platform is about a strong and sovereign Alberta and its independence. And I think there's a lot of things in Canada that we're not talking about in relation to the public forum. And I believe that farmers are producers and not polluters. I believe that oil and LNG are a requirement for human prosperity. I believe that reverse racism is racism. I believe the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to humanity. I believe that compelled speech is not a Canadian value. I believe that multiculturalism has failed, and I believe that there are only two sexes. One of the challenges that we have here tonight is that there's a lot of trust, and I had my trust in the Conservative Party of Canada as well. But we are facing a threat in this nation of post-nationalism. And in this last 10 years, we've had Justin Trudeau commit to Canada being the first post-nation state. We've had a severe undermining foreign interference, and Justin Trudeau has told us that COVID would provide an opportunity for a reset. There has not been one challenge to the
Okay.
So I think he's saying some pretty conservative things, things I think we probably all wanted to hear from the Conservatives during the last election campaign. And as I said last night, he's leaving it all on the dance floor. But I don't think Grant is going to win the riding, obviously. I'll go to Michael first. What is your response to what he had to say there?
He hit all the notes.
Yeah.
He hit every single note that every Conservative in Western Canada and Conservatives outside of Western Canada should believe in. So that was great. It was really good. And the unfortunate part about being a Conservative in Canada is even though you hit the high notes, it still probably won't get you elected because that's not the way the East or Atlantic Canada feel about values. They've been co-opted by the Liberals. They've been co-opted by the left wing. So on the face of it, fantastic. I can understand why Pierre has not been that vocal about going that hard because his strategists and his polling would tell him that basically some of those are losing issues. So I thought it was a great first statement by Grant. Now, I think he fell off the rails during the rest of the debate.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be interesting to see what happens in this, and I refer to this as the hooked on phonics election, because I guess you can just write in somebody's name, and if it's close enough, they say, okay, that's got to go to Poilievre, which is another issue altogether. So this is the very, very first Canadian hooked on phonics by-election.
Yeah, it's true with the write-ins, and just about every ballot is going to need to be scrutinized because nobody can spell Poilievre's name right. Like I spell it wrong multiple times a day. My fingers just can't type it.
His name.
Yeah. Berta Proud Dad. I think Michael's right. There are two different kinds of Conservatives in this country, and they all are within the same party. There's a very different Western style of conservatism versus the Doug Ford, Tim Houston version of it.
Absolutely, absolutely there is. And that's the thing is we are such a large country. We are a large country and we do have a large landmass, but conservatism in the East is completely different than conservatism in the West. Conservatives out here, we are so tired. We are sick and tired of Ottawa ruling over us and being against us every step of the way. Conservatives out east don't necessarily see that because they're just used to Eastern politics, what happens in the East. Out here, conservatism means something different, I truly believe, than what it does in the East. Now, what Grant said there is totally aligns with me. Totally
Right.
aligns with everything. It was just like I was standing there on stage doing a little speech. But the thing is I don't think we are ever going to be at a point in this country, and I'm going to lose a lot of support for this, but I've always said this. We are not a fringe party country. I truly do not believe that we are.
Yeah.
And you know, Pierre Poilievre, I've been a big supporter of Pierre Poilievre. Does he hit all the notes? No, he doesn't, but he's got a base, right? Just like Justin Trudeau had a base, just like Mark Carney has a base, they all have a base. And he also has to look after all Canadians when he's a leader of a political party. So did Grant say all the right things? Absolutely he did. Does Pierre have to be a little more aggressive? I think he does. In the federal election, he definitely needed to be as well. And I've expressed that. I've expressed that he need to be more aggressive. Albertans, people from Saskatchewan, people from the West, we expect more than I believe the Conservatives in the East.
Yeah, I think you might be right, and it is true. Like any election is, you just pick the most electable, best of the worst.
Absolutely.
That's just how it works. Let's go to clip 2. This is Poilievre on the problems with immigration in this country. He's just Mr.
The cause
Slip
of
Up.
inflation is government. Cost, yes, it's very simple. Supply and demand. The government is boosting demand and limiting supply. They're boosting demand through out of control immigration and money printing that adds more money and people than new products for them to buy. And they are restricting the supply of things by blocking everything from home building to natural resource development. So what's the solution? We need to cut back on immigration. In fact, we need to have negative population growth for the next several years as more people leave than come. We need to slash bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, corporate welfare, and handouts to fraudulent refugees. And we need to unlock our resources to produce cheap energy and affordable homes. So let's produce more stuff rather than adding more people and more money.
Great answer. Simple.
Thank you, Pierre.
Okay, I'll go to Lise first because I didn't go to her last time. Although I was there with you reacting live.
Yeah.
This is a very popular issue, not just with conservatives, but all the polling data says across all parties, including the NDP, people think that immigration levels are just too high. Now that varies by party, but once you tell people what the immigration levels are, they sort of are like, what? But again, should have said this during the election.
I was just going to say that these all would have been great points to make in the lead up to the federal election. If the Conservatives were looking to garner votes from other parties, especially the woman vote, saying things like this in the lead up to the election would have had a monumental impact. We know that immigration is stressing all of our public infrastructure, whether it be housing, whether it be healthcare, whether it be education, pick your poison. We know that immigration has had a negative impact on our life in Canada, that it has been growing at a rate that is untenable by Canadians or by Canada to be able to be absorbed, to absorb this many people all at once. And again, it would have been really nice to have heard him say these things in the lead up to the election. Is he wrong? No, he's not wrong. He's just late.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not going to make him popular with the bureaucrats, but I mean, Carney says he's going to slash the bureaucracy too. I'll believe it when I see it. But it's good to finally hear the Conservatives use the language of fraudulent refugees, because before we've just been calling them economic migrants, illegal.
Asylum seekers.
They haven't even really used the word illegal. They've been using irregular migration to deal with the people flooding across the border. This is a welcome change in tone from the Conservatives. Michael, comments?
Yeah. See, the Liberals had to do this because they have killed pretty much every industry in the West. And the only thing to keep the GDP numbers up is consumerism. So you can actually keep up the GDP numbers by bringing a lot of people in. Now, unfortunately, it's a very short-term solution because many immigrants now are propped up by government dollars in terms of benefits that they receive that regular Canadians who have lived here all their lives do not receive. So it is short-term gain for long-term pain. And it's not a great situation. You know, the fear, and the left have got this, they've got this right from their perspective. And everybody who comments about this from the left is being referred to as a racist, right? That's the issue. The left have been able to effectively frame the immigration issue not as one of an economic issue, but one as a race issue. And we as Conservatives, we don't stand up to that nearly as much as we should.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because polling data released earlier this week shows that new Canadians, people who went through the proper processes to become Canadian citizens and to contribute to this country, they are more concerned about immigration levels than regular old Toronto boomers. And of course they are. I mean, they came to Canada with the idea that they would be able to access the Canadian dream. They uprooted their lives somewhere else and brought it here, and they're like, this is not what we signed up for. And
Well,
they feel like they got the bait and switch.
They left a country only to arrive in their old country. That's what their complaint is. So,
Yeah.
Berta Proud Dad, what say you?
Yeah.
So I love what you said about Pierre being late. This is one big thing during the federal election that I did multiple videos on, podcasts about Pierre not hitting the right points during the federal election. Immigration matters to Conservatives. And now we're starting to see through the polling that immigration matters to everybody. But I want to remind people, how did we get here? How did we get to this point? We got to this point by opening up the floodgates and being one of the most vulnerable countries where you can come and take advantage of a socialized system. And that's where we are, and here we are. Throughout that whole time, I was talking about it. And what was I labeled as? A racist. A racist throughout this whole thing. But then you have the left who can now say, you know what? We messed up. Yeah, we let too many people in. Like they weren't responsible for it. The left are the party that will create a problem and then give you a solution to fix it and then expect praise.
Yeah.
And for Pierre Poilievre to come out and say what he said, I agree with him. But why wasn't this said during the federal election? And that's a big question that I ask myself is I think they learned a big lesson in the federal election, that he did not come out swinging hard enough. And now why I'm a proponent that he needs to sit in the House is because when he faces Mark Carney in the House, he's going to be swinging a lot harder than he ever has, because he learned his lesson.
Yeah, and you can take that sentiment and apply it across the board to so many segments of the things that are important to Conservatives, whether it be healthcare and the absolute disaster that Canadian healthcare is. You can apply this to radical gender ideology. We didn't hear boo from the Conservatives on radical gender ideology throughout the entire election campaign. And you know what? That would have grabbed the women. It wasn't that Pierre Poilievre struggled to get the men. I mean, you two are both evidence of this, right? Like we all know the men loved Pierre Poilievre. It was the women that we needed to gather, and they didn't use the things that were important to women. So I hope the Conservative Party is listening to all of these Conservatives, telling them what we need to hear reflected back from them.
Yeah, I appreciated. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, it just for some reason during the election campaign, he got scared.
Yes.
He got scared of his own positions. So what he was worried about, Ron Faucheux he writes a magazine called Campaigns and Elections in the US, and he's got a great book called Winning Elections. And there's two ways you can actually garner an electorate. You can tell them what they want to hear, or basically you can be who you are and then gather the votes from that. More ethical way is tell them exactly what you stand for and then find the votes. But you don't basically survey the crowd and say, okay, what do you want me to be? How do you want me to act?
Right.
And what he did is during the election, is he did exactly that. He got scared for some reason because he listened to people around him, and he should have gone with his gut.
Well, he only said what was palatable to the left. And as long as you stay within the confines of what's palatable to the left, you will never move the needle and compel people to understand that conservatism is way better for all of the reasons, like for all of the reasons. But so long as we're staying in the well, we don't want to offend the leftists, you're never going to get anywhere. And so I hope that they learned their lesson. Yeah.
To the talking point on that, where he got scared, I truly believe he got scared when he did come out and say he was going to cut federal jobs in a riding full of federal jobs.
Yeah,
and I think he saw his polling.
Yeah,
I think he saw his polling starting to drop after that in his riding, and I think his team brought him together and said, "Hey, we need to redeem ourselves here," but it was too late. And that was a big concern for me. And I respect the man for coming out, because he stood on his platform and he said exactly what he needed to say in a riding that he knew a lot of people are working for the federal government, and said, I have to cut your jobs. And when he comes out later after the election, and it was one of the reasons why he says that he lost his riding, which I'm a true believer in, he comes out and says, I stood on what I believe in, and we still have to cut federal jobs in this country. We still have to do it.
Could they have done a better job? You remember when Javier Milei became president, and he had that great big whiteboard of government institutions, and he just started pulling Post-it notes off of that great big whiteboard and being like, we're going to take this out. We're going to take this out. He provided specific examples of government waste so unbelievable that people supported him in that. So was it that he said that he was going to get rid of government jobs, or was it that he just wasn't specific enough?